Getting an autoimmune disease is life-changing in almost every way. Yes, you may now have an answer, but your future can go from looking clear and bright to fuzzy and dark. I've seen patient after patient get tossed around by the disability system. I've had many difficult conversations with people about whether applying for disability is the right move for them. There is nothing easy when first facing a new autoimmune disease, and maneuvering work and possibly disability is certainly no different. So we're going to discuss the scenarios where you might need to think about disability, the disability options that are out there, how to prepare yourself, and then a peek inside the doctor's point of view. And if you stay till the end, I like to wrap things up with some questions for you and your doc to discuss so you can take all this information and apply it to you and your life. So let's get started. Let me first start by putting a disclaimer, which I think most who watch this channel will know, but I want to reiterate. I am a rheumatologist. I myself do not have an autoimmune disease, nor have I found myself personally facing these decisions. I'm going to be talking about this as someone who has observed many people go through the process and have had many conversations with patients and other doctors about these issues. The doctor is an important part of this process for anyone facing this decision, but the doctor is only part of the system. So when may you find yourself facing the question of disability? The simple answer is whenever you find your medical condition is interfering with your ability to function at your job. Most of the time, I find it is when people are first diagnosed. When you are first diagnosed with RA, lupus, or really any other autoimmune disease, people are often feeling quite ill. And this makes sense as you aren't on any treatment yet. I mean, how could you be if no one knew what you had, right? Once you find out what you are dealing with, some things get clearer and some things don't. Our futures can get murky, but we now have a name and presumably a path forward on how we, meaning ourselves and our doctor, are going to treat this thing. But very few autoimmune treatments work overnight, and it can take months for inflammation to calm down in response to treatment. So it's very common when you find yourself in this position to consider temporary disability in order to focus on getting healthy again. And the tenor of that conversation with your doctor will depend on a lot of factors, including the condition you are facing, how sick you are, and the type of treatments you are considering with your doctor. But I'll get more into that later in the video. The other scenario where disability is often considered is when your autoimmune condition is either not getting better or actually getting worse. Both of these scenarios are difficult and scary. Knowing the basics about the disability landscape and how to prepare, however, can arm you with the knowledge you need to take those first steps, which is what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so when I said the basics, I meant it. I am not a lawyer and certainly can't speak to all the nuances and special. Hi, so I'm editing the video right now, and it's occurred to me that this next section is really only applicable to those in the United States. So if that happens to be you, great. If not, I recommend that you skip this section and go on to the next at this timestamp. All right, thanks. Circumstances regarding disability policies and law. So we are just going to go over some basic terminology so that you have a starting point to do your own research. In the world of disability, there is private insurance, public safety net programs, and then there's FMLA or Family Medical Leave Act, which really isn't a disability program, but still comes up often, so you should know about it. So let's start with private insurance disability policies. These are insurance policies that either you or your employer pay for, similar to how you pay for medical insurance or car insurance. There are short-term disability policies as well as long-term disability policies. These policies will provide a percentage of your pre-disability earnings for the period of time that you are deemed disabled. Short-term policies can typically cover between 40 and 70% of your income for anywhere between 3, 6, or 8 months. Long-term policies typically cover less and can last up to a year. However, the specifics regarding how much you get and for how long is very policy dependent. So if you find yourself facing a new illness and are considering disability, it's important to understand what policy you have available to you. This will be something you have access to through your employer or your HR department. I recommend getting this information as early as possible and familiarizing yourself with it. Aside from private insurance policies, there are also federal safety net programs. The main federal, meaning national program, is SSDI, or Social Security Disability Insurance. To qualify for this program, you have to be deemed disabled and have a long enough work history. If you qualify, you get a monthly stipend based on your previous work history and the state you live in, and get Medicare after you've been with the SSDI program for 2 years. There are a ton of caveats and exceptions to this. For example, if you are young and don't have a long enough work history, there are some exceptions. And if you are on dialysis, you may get Medicare sooner than the 2 years. So I definitely recommend doing your due diligence and reading more about this. There are also some states that have state disability programs. California, Hawaii, New Jersey, New York, and Rhode Island all have state programs that provide a financial benefit if you qualify. And then there's FMLA, or the Family Medical Leave Act. FMLA is not an insurance policy or safety net program that results in a financial benefit, but it's a means to provide job protection. If you qualify for FMLA, you can request leave from your job for health reasons or to care for an ill family member without fear of losing your job. Okay, so now that we have a basic understanding of the landscape, you can probably appreciate how quickly this can become confusing and overwhelming. Each policy and program is different and will require something different from you and your doctor, so organization is really key. In an effort to get organized, it's also important to take some time and see if you would benefit from a disability lawyer. Although it may seem like, oh, I just apply and a lawyer really isn't necessary, the paperwork required and the follow-up gets hairy really quickly. It's not uncommon for insurance companies or programs to come back requesting more information, and when trying to manage all of this while feeling sick, having that extra help of a professional is certainly beneficial. From my point of view, having watched so many patients struggle through this process, I can say that the most successful have had a good lawyer advocating for them. So what else can you do? Well, get copies of all the policies available to you. Ask your HR rep to review them with you so you understand the policies inside and out. Read up on the SSDI requirements. I'll put the link down below, and any state programs you may have available to you. If getting a lawyer isn't an option, see if you can get help organizing from a friend or family member. Trust me, this stuff gets overwhelming fast, and as much as I advocate for you being part of the process, I also know that when you aren't feeling well, having an extra pair of eyes and hands really helps. Keep all your copies and notes in one file. When forms or applications are needed, see if you can get extra copies just in case. And also, know your dates. When did you feel too ill to work? Have you already stopped work? And if so, what was your last day? Were you in the hospital? If so, know the dates you went in and the date you came out. Your doctor will need to submit medical records with your application. Knowing where your doctor stores your records is really key in following up. Is it a small office where everything is handled by the nurse? Or is it a large practice where a whole separate medical records department exists? So once you've decided that this is something you need to consider and have a basic understanding of the programs available to you, it's time to discuss this with your doctor. As I said at the beginning, your doctor is just a piece of this very large, complex process, but they are an important piece as they have to agree that yes, you are unable to function at work. If you were in the hospital facing major organ damage or requiring high doses of steroids and maybe even chemotherapy, it's not uncommon for the doctor to bring it up. Even if you haven't found yourself in the hospital but have severe disease when you first meet with your rheumatologist, it may be clear from the get-go that disability should be discussed. When things get fuzzy is when someone is clearly not feeling their best but have no signs of major organ involvement or even obvious signs of inflammation. And I'm just going to say it. The real difficult conversations usually happen around fibromyalgia. There are so many reasons why this is the way it is. It's still a condition we are learning about. And if you want to know more, I have a whole video about fibromyalgia pain that I'll put down below. And we don't have many, if any, objective measures to hang our hat on and say, see, there's the disease. And thus, we don't have many measures to point to and say, see, now it's getting better. I have to admit, in preparing this video, I Googled, why does my doctor deny my disability claim? And what I found was mostly around the idea that doctors don't believe a person's claim that they can't work. I'm not going to deny that this still happens, unfortunately. If that is the case, I would question how solid that doctor-patient relationship is in the first place. And for that, that reason alone recommend a second opinion. But I'm going to offer another reason why this is a difficult thing for rheumatologists in particular to square. When making judgments about disability, it's not only someone's current status that is considered, but it's also their prognosis. It's only in very rare cases when someone needs initial permanent disability. With conditions like lupus, scleroderma, RA, ankylosing spondylitis, and the like, we have a good understanding of what we can expect from the condition and the medications and other tools we have at our disposal. Not to say we always get it 100% right, but we have a framework to make a judgment. Okay, you're going to need 3 months, or you'll need 6 months, or you'll need a year. Because we are still learning about fibromyalgia and our current treatment options are so limited, it's very difficult to judge how long will be useful. So with that, how can we get these conversations started with our doctor? First, check in with yourself. Are you unable to function at work with your current responsibilities? Are there work accommodations that could be made that would allow you to function better? Examples may be changing to a standing desk, or increasing the number of breaks you get, working from home, or moving your work area closer to the bathroom. If no reasonable accommodations seem possible, can you imagine having similar difficulties in another job? Not suggesting that getting a new job is quick, easy, or even possible, but this is an important thing to note as you consider how you could spend your time while on disability. Then it's time to have the talk. I'd recommend not leaving this until the doctor is about to walk out of the room, and maybe even sending the doctor a patient portal message telling them you will want to discuss this at your next visit. I recommend starting with why this is something that's come up for you in the first place. So something like, I can't type, walk, stay awake, think clearly to multitask, and my job requires that I do. In your experience with cases like mine, how long does it typically take until I can do that thing that I can't do right now? I'm looking into what options I have to keep my job, keep a roof over my head, and allow myself to get better. Would you support my disability application for X amount of time? If they say no, try to stay calm and simply ask why. It could be that they don't feel they are the right doctor to complete the application, or they don't have the office capabilities to complete the paperwork. If they don't feel you are disabled, or that the condition they are treating you for is the reason that you are, then starting a conversation about what they do think is the problem will be very illuminating and may give you important information regarding a new direction in medical care that you should take. Have a plan for your disability. Having time to rest and heal is important, but it's also a good time to work towards what a new life with your autoimmune condition and work could look like. This can be a stressful and super uncomfortable aspect of getting a new diagnosis of any chronic illness, and I hope this has provided a framework in which you think about your options and how you go about it. If you've made it this far, I'd appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, and share this. And we'll see you next time.